everyone, and welcome to our wonderful panel. This is Detoxify, stopping harassment before it starts. I am so glad to be joined with you by these three lovely, amazing panelists and three lovely, amazing women. I am Bordy McBoard. I am your moderator for today, and a little bit about this panel that we're going to be hearing from today. Oftentimes, discussions of sexual harassment focus on how victims can protect themselves or what to do after an incident has occurred. While support for victims is critical, this begs the question, how can we prevent that harassment from even happening in the first place, right? What first warning signs should employers and community leaders look out for? And what small actions can we take every day in order to stomp out that toxicity? Joining me today, I am your moderator, Andrea McBoard Richmond, and joining alongside of me is Danielle Payton, head of people of the organization, The Game Hers, Panley, product manager of Gamer Safer, and Berta Ladon, community manager of Femme Gaming. I'm so excited that you lovely ladies are here joining me, and let's get this started with a little bit of an icebreaker. Please tell me a little bit about yourselves, your professional journey, I apologize, and what led you to the place that you currently are now.
I'll go ahead and kick us off. So I actually work in IT. And it's a very male-dominated field. And of course, I've been a lifelong gamer. And I've seen kind of the full gamut of healthy and unhealthy communities. And I ended up joining Femme Gaming just as a member of the community and fell in love with that community, fell in love with the mission that we have as a community. And I am now the community manager for Femme Gaming, which has been an incredible opportunity to help support women and provide safe spaces for women gamers all across the globe.
Hi, I'm Danielle Payton from The Gamers. I'm the head of people there, but I actually started my career in education. I'm a former teacher. I transitioned to gaming when I was asked to start doing some HR things for The Gamers, and have seen what The Gamers is trying to do compared to other organizations, and then really the need for our company to be pushing for equity and inclusion in gaming so that spaces aren't toxic. So all people, no matter their gender or race or any kind of identifying characteristics, can feel welcome in gaming. So that's what I'm all about.
Hi, I'm Panley. I joined this kind of safety space a long time ago when I started using the platform Discord. And I've spent, I think, 5 years on that platform, and the past 2 I've been working closely with Discord to help bring safety. And over the past 6 months, I joined Gamer Safer as a product manager, focusing on Discord, on auto moderation, and keeping people safe online, because it doesn't stop when the game stops.
It absolutely does not stop when the game stops. And I'm very glad to hear a lot of you guys' backgrounds because particularly you, Danielle and Berta, you work with organizations, Femme Gaming and Game Hers are communities centralized and creating communities for the gaming space. So talk a little bit about how those orgs foster an environment to prevent toxic behavior within those communities.
I can go first, if that's okay, Berta. So the Game Hers, it started with the mission of creating a safe space for women and feminine identifying gamers. And I think we've been able to keep that safe space going because we have such strict guidelines with how people interact in our space. We really have no tolerance for bullying, for people who are not open-minded, in all honesty. We don't just have, women and men in our space. We have non-binary folks and people of all genders. And it's most important to us that people feel welcome and safe in our space than that we just have a space that attracts everyone. if you were to, I guess if you were to come up to me and say like, oh, is your space for every kind of gamer? Yes. And we are not a space that tolerates toxic gamers, right? Like you can't come into our space using racial slurs or anything that makes people uncomfortable. We give lots of chances. We're all about, educating our community to be more open-minded. But if that's not your jam, then you're not our space. And we are really focused on making sure our space is safe. So people have been removed. And I think that's actually one of the key, something that encourages and like it maintains safe spaces is just like not allowing toxicity.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same with femme gaming. We make sure that our spaces are safe. We provide an environment for women to share their stories, which I think is critical. As part of the process is for us to learn from one another. I've learned a lot from our founder and just been able to find more of an assertive voice to call out toxicity, to call out harassment, to call out those inappropriate behaviors and make sure that our community is equipped to handle that. And part of that also is ensuring that the communication is positive and going in a direction that is additive to the community and not taking away from the community. And like Danielle said, making sure to keep everybody safe by enforcing rules with having a little bit of grace in some cases. And then sometimes it's a zero tolerance. We have no tolerance for straight out harassment of the members of the community, for example, or racial slurs or things like that. We just don't want to welcome those things in our spaces. And we have a really wonderful, healthy, positive community of women who build up other women.
And that's amazing. And that's beautiful. And Panley, you not only working with Discord, not only have of course, the women of the platform, but also it's open to all genders and everyone in Discord. And so how does that contrast and because there's such a more open space, creating and making sure that you cut down on toxic environments and toxic cultures, because unfortunately, although you do have game herbs in fem gaming are more highly moderated. Discord is a little bit more of an open wild west. I imagine it's a little bit harder, but not still impossible, in order to create an environment that stops that harassment and cuts down on any type of negative toxic behaviors that may occur in those spaces.
So obviously we do have places like fem gaming, game herbs that are great examples of really, really nice spaces, not just for women, but for anybody. There are lots of examples on Discord, on lots of other platforms as well, social platforms like Twitch, Reddit, maybe a little bit less so. But there's a lot of, really, really nice spaces out there. And obviously, if it's highly targeted, like LGBTQ+, minority groups, and women's groups, there's going to be more people coming in. So you need to have much more proactive, much more reactive. And the big one for me is preventative moderation in place so that people can't come and do significant amounts of damage. They will always come. They will always try and do damage. It's about reducing that so the community doesn't see it. I think one of the best analogies I've ever seen, and this goes for any community on Discord, any platform, if you ever see the sign in factories that says it's been X days since an accident, that's what you have in Discord. If you can scroll up in chat and see something that's not so great, then that's a problem. And this is something that goes across all communities on Discord. I think Discord themselves are putting a lot of effort into this, but also Gamer Safer are putting a lot of effort into this as well. My kind of scope as product manager is helping make these communities safer, bringing in the auto moderation tooling that people might not be aware of, helping them bring in that preventative element, because there's a lot of stuff out there that can really help, but Discord don't do the best job at telling people where it is and how to use it. You've got things like the Discord Moderator Academy. I recently released an article there, but it's hard to give access to a lot of people very easily. And so constantly Gamer Safer are working to bring that to people proactively, making these really, really good connections with people like Fem Gaming. Again, they're amazing. And saying, hey, here's some recommendations, here's some things you can do. And I think this is really cool. I think Gamer Safer, kind of are the cornerstone of doing this kind of thing. And the more that we can do this kind of thing, as companies and individuals, the better.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point. I'm glad that you brought up Gamer Safer, right? Because all of you guys have experience, of course, moderating communities and making sure to nip some of that toxic culture out of the bud. But Gamer Safer is trying to do that through the software environment, right? Through the software side. To tell us a little bit about the software, how that's developing and how that helps so that people like Danielle, people like Berta, people such as yourself don't have to sit there and individually manually scope through all of the problematic things and can help, get ahead of that. And like you said, use that preventative software in order to make sure more fires aren't put out.
For sure. So there's a lot of ways that people can kind of attack a community. I'm going to break it down into three sort of big categories. First of all, you've got raids, and I'm pretty sure we're all kind of similar with the term of raids. A lot of people join at once, try to be disruptive. This actually also has two categories of its own. You've got raids that are done by real people in real life who are sitting at a computer and just joining with their friends to do damage. And you've got the second kind, which is a bot raid. I think Twitch has kind of the most common examples of bot raids. We've seen like follow raids and things like that on the platform. This also happens on Discord, where a bunch of automated accounts will join and try and cause damage. And so you've got a lot of preventative measures that you can put in there, but they're both very, very different issues. So when it comes to Gamer Safer, we've got products like GS Auth, which effectively tries to get rid of the problem of user raids, because it's a very, very hard problem to kind of fix, because there's no accountability innate in Discord. If your Discord account gets deleted by Discord's trust and safety department, well, that's it, you can just make a new one. However, we're going to try and kind of add this passport to your gaming profile. If you join a Discord server, you will need to use this GSORF product to gain access to these high trust or high harm environments. And then even if you do something bad, that's going to stick with you, because you can't just then join a new server with GSORF and get in and expect nothing to be raised. Flags will be raised because we've seen you before. We have a lot of things that we can do there with like device biometrics to kind of see, this is a user we've seen before and they're a problem. And so there are lots of ways that we can do this with prevention. And the other aspect there with bot prevention, there's actually really like human ways to analyze this is not a real person. You can see by their profile picture, by their creation date, by the join patterns. And so this is something we're also looking into, so that we can stop both harm vectors there when it comes to that preventive level on raids. And raids, I think, are some of the most damaging things that can happen to the community. Again, if we look back, it's incredibly visible. You can see the damage, you can see the moderators a lot of the time panicking a little bit, because if it's your first raid, you don't know what to do. And so on top of this as well, we've also got education. Education is a great resource. It's always something that should be pushed, because if you can educate your administrators, your moderators to deal with raids, to deal with high harm kind of stuff, then it becomes less of a problem because it's less visible to the community. That's also something we're trying to do with Gamer Safer. As much as we can push the automated stuff, everything needs a human touch at some point. Everything needs that kind of human element. I've been talking for quite a while there, so.
No, it's amazing. Lots of great points to go off of that. And honestly, too, the more insight and how to prevent those situations, the better. That's a little bit of that automated side, right? And how Gamer Safer does it. How about you all, Danielle and Berta, the manual side, right? How you guys prevent that for both gamers, for fem gaming, and how you stop that from occurring and prevent all of those problematic people from joining.
Well, I think Pamela touched on, you have to have that human touch. You do have to have an excellent moderation team, and we absolutely love our moderation team, our moderation squadron, or the mod squad. They do an incredible job of keeping an eye, having that open conversation in a private channel saying, hey, there's something happening, keeping an eye on certain users. If something seems off, we say something. And that's really important to protect our community, is making sure that our moderation team is speaking up, and even our entire community speaks up as well. When they see something that's off, they are not afraid to raise the flag, so to speak, to make sure that it gets that attention that it needs, so that we can protect our entire community.
Yes, I think it's really a community effort. With our Discord, I've seen members, not just our moderators, but people in the community that love our community, flagging things, like flagging, just like Berta was saying, something that seems a little bit off, and I apologize, I'm in Virginia Beach and like, I guess the storm's coming in. So now the lighting's all weird here.
You're doing great.
Thanks. So yeah, it's just our community looking out. And then I think that what's interesting is the Game Hers has an app, and it's something that's hasn't been around for even a year yet, but it's been growing very quickly. We're at almost 12,000 folks in the app, and it's listening to our app users as well as our app ambassadors about what kind of safeguards we need. When the app was small, around 1,000 people, we didn't have incidents, of people harassing other members or people posting appropriate pictures. Lately, we have, and that's a blessing and a curse, right? Because we are more public and our platform is growing, our app is growing very quickly, and now we can't tell truly, like if it's what Panley's saying, are there bots of some kind, but we have had users come on and try to like just cause a ruckus, unfortunately. Like they seem to thrive off of our panic of saying like, oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of genitalia on our app. Unfortunately, like someone's posting all these terrible photos. But it was listening to our app ambassadors about what we can do. It's everyone highlighting the issues and us working together. And I think that's what's been really beautiful to see in our app and on our Discord. The people in our community so love our space and love what we're doing and want it to be an awesome place of women, like Berta was saying, women supporting other women, people supporting streamers, people supporting people's like gender identity journey. Like I've seen that on our app, and you can only do that in a space that's safe. And so looking around, everyone's like, we have to band together and make it safe for everyone else. And so I really love that personally, that it's not, us people looking at the Game Hers like, hey, buy more moderators or something. It's just like, no, like I'm a member, I own this space too, and let's work together.
And I love that too, because Panley talked about that harm, right? But on the other side too, harm when you have all these raids, all these people on the other side too. Let's talk a little bit about that joy, what it means to have a truly safe space and how that can really uplift and empower users of your communities in order to make sure that they can reveal more parts of themselves, feel like they can have a safe environment, people who are friends who can support them, and what that means to you as content moderators, as community moderators, and what it means to your communities that you guys preside over.
It is all about the community empowering one another. And, we don't want to get into a situation where our community doesn't feel safe. Our moderation team in particular, they're present, they're there all the time. And I think that we all take the community's safety as our chief concern. And, we make sure to provide those spaces for our community to open up, like you said, about themselves, to share about themselves. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that story like, oh my gosh, I had no idea something like this existed. Oh my goodness, this is what I've been looking for the longest time, a place where I can go be myself, not be run off by toxicity, and feel safe to share parts of myself. We even have an area of our Discord, for example, where we talk about mental health and wellness. And sometimes those conversations can get very, very deep. But at the same time, we're able to band together with one another and lift one another up and support the community in whatever need that they are, and who I think we try to take like a whole person approach. You're not just a gamer. You could be a mom. You could be somebody who's struggling, or you're on a fitness journey. We have areas for our women all across the Discord, for an example, and providing those spaces so that we can build those friendships and those connections. I think that's the most important thing that we can do.
Yes, I really love that, because we have the same approach. We're looking at the whole person. We have a space if you're really into anime, if you're really into cooking, if you're just a fur mom or a fur parent, you just want to post pictures of your pets. Like, it is about your whole self. And then once you are able to really bring your whole self and have it accepted, you can create those friendships. And so it's really cool for me to see our app and our community grow. And then for people to meet other people in real life. Like, it's so cool. Like, people are making IRL friends that they met online. They meet up in real life and then they game together. And then their friendship isn't just about the game. It's about like who they are and what they're doing in their life. And so it's wonderful that like games plus people equals like friendships kind of thing that's happening when you have a wonderful community like what Berta, Panley, and I are talking about.
I think I can bring in some small perspective as well from my experience. Obviously, I focus a lot more on the automated side of things, the preventative and the kind of tooling. But I have been in a few communities, even talking about the preventative tooling. You know, and a lot of people working on this tooling are, you know, in minority spaces, LGBTQ women, and they're saying we need to do something about this. And so the solidarity there, even in building this tooling out, is huge. There are a lot of really, really amazing women that I've worked with, even at the company. I'm going to call out Maria because she's amazing. You know, there's a lot of people that are working really, really hard in this space to make things better. And that solidarity there is really, really nice to see, even here in this panel today. So
solidarity really makes the world go around, and it's I'm glad to hear from you all that the more people that you have shooting in your corner, the better that you can be, and the better that we can, you know, squash all this negativity out. And going back a little bit to I suppose the automated side, there was a big kerfuffle in the Twitch space about a year and a half ago, when all these hate raids, you know, you're talking about it, family, all these hate raids were occurring, and there was a mixed support, mixed opinions about whether or not these platforms were doing enough or could do enough to make sure that they could prevent all these raids from happening. What is your perspective on the steps that places like Twitch, YouTube, etc., were doing to prevent this? And what more do you feel like they can do? Could they have done more? How did you feel supported by them while that was occurring?
am I okay to pick this up first?
Absolutely.
I have a lot of opinions on this, as you can imagine, somebody who's building out similar tooling. I'm going to say unequivocally, the trust and safety staff that are on the ground at Twitch are amazing. They work incredibly hard to keep things safe. Same goes for the anti-abuse. You have individual employees who are pouring hours into keeping people safe, and it shows. Unfortunately, when things get to a certain scale, it is a very, very hard problem to solve. And the problem is people keep finding new ways to be visible because it's not about anything other than just being visible, right? But the problem is, if you're in a place like Twitch, you need users to be visible because you're engaging with them. You know, Discord, it's a chat platform where you're talking directly with people. You can't just hide people away because that completely defeats the point of the platform. So there's this really, really hard balance between making the platform do what it's supposed to do and it being able to do that, making that really, really good for like malicious actors and these people who are spamming. Like the raids that we did get on Twitch a while back, they were just join notifications of people joining the stream, right? That's a really, really cool feature to have for the streamer, but also it can be abused very, very easily. And so there is this really, really fine line of, are you silencing real users and removing a good feature, or are you preventing something bad from happening? So it's very, very hard to walk. Twitch has gotten better, I feel, over the past year or so, especially in their transparency in how they're handling things. And I think that is why a lot of people get frustrated at the end of the day. It's not because these issues are happening, because these issues will always be happening. It's because a lot of these companies just go silent when this is happening. And that transparency is incredibly important. Discord has kind of been leading the field here with their constant transparency reports. We had the Buffalo incident recently, which is very, very deeply upsetting to a lot of people. And Discord made a statement about that shortly after because, you know, there was Discord involvement there. And I think the more that there can be more transparency from these platforms, the better, because it's a constant ongoing challenge. But if these platforms are very candid with users saying, this is the problem, this is what we're doing to fix it, things can get better.
Yeah, and Panley, I love the work you guys are doing. I think it's going to be incredibly important. And I love that you pointed out what Twitch has done and their staff and what they're trying to do. I got hate rated my second stream. And so I did not know what to do. And I looking back upon that, I wish I had a panic button. And one of the nice things that we've seen growing through the Twitch community, which is amazing, by the way, Twitch community is just incredible, are these homegrown tools. Like if you use a Mix It Up bot, for example, they have a panic button, for example, that could put your chat into slow mode or emote only mode and things like that to protect your community. And we see that with other tools like Seribot, for example. So it's really amazing to see the community coming together to protect the channel community. But at the same time, looking back, I really wish I would have had like a panic button as a streamer to just be like, we're in danger here, and just kind of push that button and protect everybody that way, as opposed to somebody brand new not really knowing what to do.
Yes, I don't have as much experience as Panley and Bird on this topic because I haven't streamed. I mean, I've witnessed a hate raid and I've read, the fallout of such things. I think I would like to see organizations like Twitch and YouTube like put out more educational materials for what to do. Like Bird is saying, like I'm sure Twitch knows that this is happening, and I see different streamers themselves saying like, "All right, this is what you can do. Like, here are some tips." But it'd be really interesting for Twitch, I think, to put out something themselves, like, we created this system and this is what we recommend you do. And this is like, instead of, using a bot, like, why doesn't Twitch put something out that's like, you can shut down your chat and I honestly don't know what best practices are. It's unfortunate that like some people just seem to enjoy the pain inflicted on others. Like, and I don't know, like Panley was saying, if we can ever prevent that, but maybe, Twitch can take a stance and be like, you know what, we don't want this. And this is what we recommend you do. If you don't know what to do, because I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And although you may not have that experience in that sense, transitioning to our next question that you touched on, and also Panley did the last answer as well, is balancing exposure, right? Because of course, as a streamer, as a community, as people who are trying to build communities, you want to make sure that, of course, you're getting exposure, you're bringing more people into the pot. But unfortunately, sometimes when you have more exposure, you're exposed to some people who have less than positive outcomes and less than positive intentions. So you talked about it a little bit, Danielle, and we can throw it to everyone else after, about how the Gamers app really balanced that, and how you see, I've seen other communities, right? Instead of, hey, they were open at first initially, it was easy to get access to discourse. Now it's a little bit more loose and holes. What are things like that you're doing in order to make sure that there's more of a vetting process so you can keep and maintain the current community that you have, but not making it possible for a new wave of people to also join the pod and to, keep that community thriving and still being uplifted?
With the app specifically, I know that the developers made the onboarding process a little bit longer than some other onboarding processes. So, you had to like create your account, you had to hook up a cell phone number for a two-step authentication, then you had to answer so many questions. So, like that process, the length of it, according to our developers, could turn people off that are there, not to enjoy the community, but to span the community. So we decided like, if you really want to be here, you're going to go through this lengthy, like check your email, answer the questions, agree to guidelines, do another thing. Like, so that's one thing I think where we decided to like balance being super accessible. We made it, you have to jump through some hoops. But yes, like it could potentially turn people off. Being such a new company and like, being a startup, I get to see like the back end of the app and see, these are the people that download it. And these are the people that actually didn't finish creating their profile. And yes, those are users that are not engaging, but potentially those are users we didn't want. And so it's just like, I think that balance. And when I talk to streamer friends, it's like, it's sad for them because when they do put themselves out there, some of the return is, like about their ethnicity, about being a woman, like you're too pretty, you're not pretty enough. Like it's such a mixed bag. And so for the individual streamer, like it's so brave of you all to just like be out there like that. And the Game Hers is really there, like I think as a refuge when you do have that experience, like come hang out with us, like because you're awesome. And like let's see what we can do to help you like get back out there. I hope that answered your question. I think I went all over the place.
No, that was a great answer. Appreciate that. Bert and Panley, have anything to add to that?
I can chime in very, very briefly. So there's always going to be this high friction element if you are going to keep a space especially safe. This is something that platforms don't like doing because they like having users, unfortunately, which is why we have a lot of issues with places like Twitch, YouTube, in some cases Discord, because they don't want to do that vetting process. And obviously you do have places that bring in that vetting process, Gamer Safer is doing it with the GS Auth system. And it does add that friction. You do kind of feel bad because some people aren't going to be able to make it through that process, either because they don't want to, or in some cases, I'm going to expand this over to Discord. Discord has phone verification as one of their settings. And some people can't do phone verification on Discord because there are some blocks of phone numbers that just don't work. If you live in Russia, there's a 50-50 chance that you can't verify your phone number. If you live in India, there's a 50-50, there's compounds, and it makes it really hard for people who actually enjoy the platform to get into these high trust communities. So it is hard to have this balance between, this high friction onboarding and actually, letting in as many people as you want. And it's a balance that, it's still ongoing. And I think 5-10 years down the line, maybe we'll be a bit further in, but the internet is constantly developing, and maybe 5-10 years down the line, a phone number won't even be, it'll be like an email, it'll be archaic and useless, and we'll have something new. Maybe our fingerprint will be our new kind of identity thing, and there's just no way to know. But I'm excited for the future, and I'm excited for constantly pushing this to make it as low friction as possible, but as nice as possible once you get in.
Yeah, my background in IT, I'm very cyber aware, and I think I come to the community with that background and that understanding that determined people will always find a way to infiltrate communities and cause problems within those communities. And well, for Fem Gaming, we have seen a 56% increase in our membership over the past, I want to say month, maybe month and a half. And we're definitely at the point where we're trying to balance that as well, seeing that growth has been amazing and encouraging. We have this influx of women that are just making this community, which is already great, even better. But I think part of that is also partnering with folks like Gamer Safer to ensure the safety of our communities. And we're really excited to be working with them to definitely harden our practices, make sure that we are equipped with the tools that we need. We're starting to implement a little bit of change into our Discord community as an example to better protect that, and taking some recommendations that we're really looking forward to receiving. But at the same time, we also just have to be prepared. That's the most important thing that we can do in that growth is don't wait until there is a problem to bring more moderators in, for example. As soon as we started to see that type of growth, we immediately jumped into adding to our moderation team. And that way we are prepared for the next wave. It's not a matter of if it's going to come, it's really going to be a matter of when. And once we accept that and are prepared for that, that's going to be the best stance that we have to protect our communities. It's not going into that panic mode like we've kind of talked about. It's really easy to do, like that hate raid. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. Yeah. We have to be equipped. We have to equip our communities and our moderators and one another, frankly. Mm-hmm. It's not just about, the Game Hers or Fem Game or whatever these communities are. We're all one big community of gamers, and we have the responsibility to protect one another as well, and sharing things like this panel.
Yeah, whether it be the individual, and like Danielle said, I know personally a lot of individuals who their numbers are increasing and they actually don't kind of like that. Of course, they want that growth, but again, that vulnerability, the things that come with it, it's hard. Okay, so having that community, having that safe space, it really helps out. And I'm going to throw it to chat because I saw a great question. I do want to say one comment. Krista Bites says, "Berta for president." So hey, I don't know if you're running or not. In the future, absolutely not. But also too, Christopher also says, and Pamela, you actually kind of touched on this, the last answer. Do you think Twitch hasn't done anything because they value the engagement over anything else?
I can give some insights here from, again, talking with people who work at Twitch in the trust and safety department. It's a hard question because there's lots of teams at Twitch, right? And marketing love the numbers going up, and you've got execs who want those numbers to be going up. And then you've got trust and safety, anti-abuse, who are like, no, these aren't real numbers, please. And it's very, very difficult at a big tech company to kind of get the resources that you need. If you're in trust and safety, if you're in anti-abuse and you're in a very big tech company, it's very difficult for you to say, this is a problem, I need resources now. And obviously you do have, these competing ideals, because like I said, if something adds engagement to the platform, but also poses a risk, then sometimes these two teams are going to conflict. Marketing, are going to say, we want users, we want to retain users. Trust and safety are going to say, no, there needs to be higher friction onboarding. You just get this constant back and forth. And that's why it's very, very frustrating, I think, for a lot of people who work at these very big tech companies, and why I think it does often come down to these smaller companies that are just building on top of platforms, even individuals, community resources, because big tech really hasn't worked this out. And I think, the bureaucracy and the litigation of working in a big tech company is really not conducive to creating safe environments, unfortunately.
Well, and if you also look at Twitch, if you go look at the statistics, I love statistics and numbers, but if you go look at the number of streamers, the number of hours watched on the platform, of course, starting in March 2020, it exploded. Yeah. And I don't have the insights that Panley does, so I'm really glad you were able to share those. But at the same time, I have to wonder if they were prepared and really anticipated ahead of time. Not only were they going to have that growth, but they were going to have some people sitting at home that didn't have a lot to do and were probably a little bit more motivated to cause chaos for entertainment or whatever it is. I just wonder if Twitch as an organization was not prepared to handle that. And so the trust and safety team had to go into a very reactionary mode instead of being proactive in the protection of the entire Twitch community. And what we saw were streamers saying, you know what, I don't want to give Twitch any more of my money. Don't sub to me. Go support me on this platform, Patreon, Ko-fi, all of those places, instead of supporting me here on Twitch. So at the end of the day, it did hurt their bottom line, but I don't think it was an intentional thing. I would hope not anyway. I would hope that Twitch is still trying to protect their streamers, the community, their viewers, everybody across the board, and not being motivated by just those sheer numbers, even if there may be kind of a conflict between departments. I'd like to think on the whole that they're looking out for the entire community.
Mm-hmm. And real quick before I get to you, Danielle, Panley, you said absolutely. You shook your head and said no during that. Do you have any more to say about that? About them being, I guess, overwhelmed, I suppose?
Yeah, I don't think any social platform was ready for the pandemic because I think we can see, not just statistically, but even in the quality of conversations, you can see it tangibly in a lot of these really big communities. Nobody was prepared. It's not just Twitch, it's Discord, it's Reddit, it's Facebook to a degree. I think a lot of people are already on Facebook. So, it exploded and nobody was ready. And obviously a lot of companies did what individual streamers used to do and go into panic mode. They didn't know what to do. And that comes back on the users. And again, because it's this litigious kind of bureaucratic environment, it's very hard for people to get resources they need because, again, you have these conflicting ideas. Marketing see the numbers go up and they're like, whoa, let's maintain this. Meanwhile, trust and safety is like, help, please, everything's on fire. So yeah, I don't think any company was ready for it, but a lot of companies have finally started to adjust. You've got Discord, which are releasing new auto moderation features, even as recently as this month. And you've got Twitch, bringing out more transparency and pushing for better tooling behind the scenes. So they're getting there. I don't think anybody was ready for this, though.
And now finally going back to you, Danielle.
I just wonder, Hanley brought up the different teams and their motivations. I wonder if Twitch feels that if they acknowledge that this is a problem, and like Berta was saying, that there are people that just want to cause problems and they are part of those numbers, that, if they acknowledge it, it's going to drive people away. So I just, like, part of me feels like they're like trying to hide behind the growth, and I'm sure it's hugely profitable and revenue is insane, and business, but like it is a problem. And I would say that it's only a matter of time until there's a new platform where they do prioritize the safety of the streamers, and people might move there and rather pay. Like, I think that's the most interesting thing about the gaming industry is, there's lots of free spaces and things like that, but some of them are so harmful that people rather have smaller communities, maybe less revenue, and go over there. I mean, I know of one amazing Sims person who just doesn't stream anymore because she says it's not worth it. And I'd rather grow my community and my brand in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And so I mean, only time will tell, really.
Yeah, and I'm hoping for it because it's that balance of growth, and the need for capital encourages more and more and more, but sometimes more and more and more isn't always the best, and it depends on how you navigate that more and more in order to make sure that, again, the whole point of this is to make sure that we have safety and create a safe space, a safe environment. So a little bit of a balancing act between that, but let's switch gears, I suppose, a little bit and talk about representation, right? And how representation, I suppose, creates the environment for harassment, right? Unfortunately, although women are 50% of around 50%, 48% exactly, 48% of people who game, all right? And 65% of women report having an instance of sexual harassment in the space, and women are 3 times as likely to experience offensive remarks. And do you feel like that lack of representation in higher spaces, of course we know that we game, but unfortunately in higher spaces, do you feel like that kind of enables a toxic environment? Do you feel like that contributes to a lot of that harassment that unfortunately women face? And what do you feel how the representation, the ties to representation and the ties to that has to do with that toxic culture that we have in gaming sometimes?
I would say unequivocally, yes. We have a lack of representation. And when you have that lack of representation, it's almost like you're having this reactionary push against against minorities and these marginalized groups breaking into any space. It could be gaming, it could be anything else. I don't think that it's a unique problem in the gaming industry. But then we see stories like Activision, Blizzard, all of these things from the top down having some cultural issues that are infiltrating into the communities, infiltrating into the games, infiltrating into every aspect of gaming. And that's a core part of FemGaming's mission, is to help improve that representation, especially in the esports industry, helping women break into gaming industry careers, those types of things. And again, somebody coming from a male-dominated field, I love that. That's one of the things I love about what the organization is doing, is to help improve that representation. And as soon as we get more representation inside of gaming, and especially in the industry itself, I think that we're going to see more change across the board. We're going to feel more equipped and empowered to call out toxic behaviors before they start. I know so many women who just say, I just don't turn on the mic. I won't do it. And so I think one of the sayings is, we're not going to shut up. We're going to turn on our mics, and we're going to be here, and we're going to be present. And I'm not saying that that's easy for every person when they are a target of harassment, or in a community or a group of class of person who may be at a higher risk for that targeting of harassment. But for those of us who maybe are budding in our assertiveness, or are just assertive by nature, we're the ones who are going to be the grassroots to help affect change inside of gaming by turning on our microphones. And when somebody starts piping off, saying, what makes you think that that's acceptable?
Yeah.
How would your mom think about the way you're speaking right now? Does this make you feel good? And actually challenging those ideas and challenging those types of behaviors right when they start, instead of just shutting down and being quiet.
Yeah, and I will say I love doing that, and there are several ways to do it. You can be like assertive and very aggressive. I'm a jokester. I'm a comedian in part, so I like to make them look like a fool. It's like, oh, you had a nap today, buddy? You're feeling really aggressive. What's going on here? And challenging that. That's another way in which you can combat that. Danielle, you're about to speak.
Oh yeah, I just 1,000% agree with what Britta said. It really comes, yes, from the top down, because I think it's unfortunate that in the executive and leader spaces, when they're predominantly men and they're predominantly people that all think the same, they think that what's happening, in the games is tolerable, and it's just, that's just part of it. Like, it's just part of Call of Duty that when you get on there, people are saying all kinds of terrible things. Like, that doesn't have to be how Call of Duty works. Like, it just doesn't have to. And I think when you get more people in there that think differently, they're going to say, oh, well, maybe we can make it so that when you play Call of Duty, people aren't yelling. just terrible things all the time. I mean, and then people will go into that game and turn their mic on. But yeah, for us at this moment in time, I think women and the others, the marginalized groups, as Berta put it, we have to turn our mics on and push for different conversations in those spaces. I think that's the only way to move forward.
I really want to talk about this part with like mics. Actually, Call of Duty is a great example. A lot of games that used to have open voice chats, let's say back in the 2010s, you could talk anytime to anybody. They stopped having voice chats, and the solution, it seemed, that a lot of people in these gaming companies at the time thought was just, well, if we just take away the ability, then it's not a problem. We just sweep the problem under the rug and that's it, it's gone. But that's really reductive. It removes this social element. And we have now a lot of these games where you can only actually hear people talk, in the lobby when the game is starting, or, after you've killed somebody, which I don't know why that is. Surely they're just going to say something toxic when you kill them. I don't know exactly what the point of that is. But I don't know who made that decision. I don't know, but I'm sure they get paid lots to make that decision. So
not the best one, I would say.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But harassment is on the rise. I think we might have seen the same ADL report. It is rising, and it's not just women. It is LGBTQ plus members, racial minorities as well, which is surprisingly concerning out as well. Just looking at the report statistics, it's very, very bad. And it's going up. And I don't think this is COVID numbers just inflating things. It is naturally going up. And it is worrying, but we can support each other, we can be vocal, and we can do that as individuals. But if the companies themselves aren't doing this, then there won't be that much movement. And there's token stuff every now and then on social media. You'll see a social media post from a big company like Blizzard or Activision saying, wow, we support equal rights, we support this, that, and the other. And it's like, are you sure? I'm not so sure your executives do. And this messaging is so mismatched, and it needs to be consistent. I think the only companies I've seen have consistent messaging are small companies, startups, or I think Discord is kind of good with its messaging. That's it. And that should not be the case. That really, really is concerning, especially considering gaming, like we say, as 50-50 between men and women. And that's not even including other identities, so that's reductive as well. And it's very frustrating.
It can seem like it's an uphill battle a lot of different times. And I really appreciate you all being representatives of marginalized communities, pushing through and staying with, even with all the toxicity, Berta going through that hate raid, Danielle having to sort through all of that on the Game Hers app, and Panley also too in Discord as well. I'm sure you've seen your share of things. Despite seeing all that, keeping focus and keeping what you're doing. And do you feel like your presence as a minority in the space really helps prevent some of that toxic culture? What do you do as in your macro to make sure that this community isn't perpetuated, this toxic space isn't perpetuated? And do you feel like just by being here, you're kind of helping at least take a small step in a direction to make sure that this is better?
It's all about empowerment. We have to empower one another, whether it's a 5-person community or a 5,000-person community. We have to equip one another and empower one another to affect positive change. We have to support one another. No matter your community, what type of marginalization it is, what type of class it is, we have a tendency to band together. And that's really important to build that sense of community, to prevent these types of things, to have the courage to speak up against toxic behaviors, harassment, those types of things, know how to report them, know how to tackle them. And again, just making sure that we are working with one another to build one another up, to give each other the courage, to give each other the just that power to stand up and say, you know what, this is not going to be okay in our spaces. Because honestly, I want the gaming world that my son is growing up into to be much better than the one that we see today. And I've been a gamer for, I'll admit, a very long time, like 30 years. So it is something that I have seen change over a long period of time. And I love seeing the type of change that we're doing, but we have a responsibility to leave the world a better place for the future generations of gamers that are going to come in behind us.
I think as a leader at the Game Hers, I can now go into other spaces. I can say like, oh, I'm a senior leader of this company, and this is what I look like, and I'm a gamer. And I think my presence when I go out into the world and when I tweet, I represent the Game Hers, and I love doing that. And I love going to esports conferences and saying like, yes, I'm a woman of color, and I'm a gamer. And the Call of Duty rhetoric or like the Activision Blizzard culture is not going to be tolerated because I'm here now. And like Berta was saying, like I am definitely assertive, and I will speak up and say that's not cool, because it takes all of us, I think, pushing to change it. And I love seeing when I go to those spaces, other people that are different, other minorities, other genders. We're all going to change the culture just by being there. So it's really encouraging, because I completely agree with Berta. Like it's not great, but it's better, and it's getting better all the time.
All I can do is keep on trying to make it 1% better every day,
So I have some extra perspective as well from the LGBTQ plus community. If you weren't aware, I'm transgender, MTF. So I've got a lot of very negative experiences there, but also a lot of really, really positive ones. And you do have these marginalized communities that don't tend to communicate very well with each other. And, you have these groups that could ally with one another that often don't. LGBTQ plus people of color, they are really good allies for one another and women, because these are marginalized groups. And if we come together, we can all say, all of this isn't okay. It's not just one thing that isn't okay. We're not just focusing on the flavor of the month. We are focusing on all of these issues, and all of them need to be addressed. So I think it's really, really important we keep doing that. And this has been getting better. I've seen a lot of people, speaking out, being vocal, having these really hard conversations. Panels like this, these are absolutely integral to keeping this momentum going. I'll always defer to somebody if I'm not an expert in the area. I'm not a person of color, but I can defer to people who are, and we should keep doing that because we need to raise these voices. It's really, really important for me. And the other thing is having these hard conversations. It's not just about having them with each other. It's about having them devil's advocate with people who aren't good, who aren't, on, I guess, the side of the right change. I've had very, very difficult conversations with people who started off as malicious users who are trying to be disruptive. Sometimes you can find people who, for lack of a better kind of catchphrase, see the light, I guess. They realize that, what they're doing is really bad. And sometimes it comes from a place of, well, they've had bad experiences and they're just reciprocating that. So it keeps going down, I think, like you said, in this vertical. And, as much as we can uplift one another, we should uplift the people who, seem to be causing these problems if possible as well. Often it's not possible, but if it is, having that hard conversation might help. And if we can get somebody to kind of listen to reason, I think it's worth having that conversation, even if it's difficult.
Yes. Berta, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I did. So I tell this story sometimes. I have a friend that I played Call of Duty with that honestly was, one of those typical players. I think you know what I'm talking about. And there was a particular incident where they brought a person into our lobby to further harass them after a game. And that left a very lasting impression on me about the community. And it really, when it was all said and done, and this was long before I joined Femme Gaming, I said, that wasn't okay, and even calling out our friends to say, that type of behavior isn't okay. We have to have that courage to stand up and say, you know what, that's not okay. And I actually have friends sometimes who are like, is what I did just toxic? Did this activity, was that toxic? No, that wasn't toxic. Or yeah, maybe you need to kind of think about those behaviors and see if that really represents the type of person you are. We absolutely have to have the courage to call out even our friends and ourselves and hold each other accountable to make sure that we affect this change.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about what people who are outside, who don't necessarily identify as women, what they can do to prevent and support women in the space, and also to prevent some of that toxic culture from existing.
We have men and people who identify as men in our gamers app and in the community. And I think it's wonderful for them to come and join us and be allies. And so I think the first step is just listening. I think, the gamer has had focus groups in last fall or so, where we heard from our community, specifically collegiate age students, to learn, like, what are their experiences in colleges that have esports programs and such. And they just want to be heard, like, first, like, just understand kind of where we're coming from and why things need to change. Like Panley was saying, like, not just for one group of people, especially during like 1 month. It's not like a month to month kind of situation. We have to change, systemically everywhere. But I think that's the first step is, if you're in the majority, I would say if you're like a white male gamer, you should just listen, and then being willing. I think the next step, like Berta said, is to check your friends. Like, and it shouldn't just be because, and I guess, obviously it can start like, oh, your sister's a gamer. You don't want your sister harassed. So maybe that's what it's going to take for you to realize it's a problem. Mm-hmm. But that shouldn't also be the case either. Just like, don't harass people because they're humans and they have feelings. All of the people.
Yes.
That's really should have, but we'll take it, a person of that identity and it hurt their feelings. Maybe now extrapolate that to being, I'm not going to harass anyone.
Pro tip, be a good person. That helps. Yeah. In the world.
You start there. It's actually not that hard.
It's not that hard, I promise. Anyone else?
Kindness is completely free. I'm always trying to inject that into my son too. Like, it costs you absolutely nothing to choose kindness. And, that's part of it too, is, for those of us who are parents as well, is making sure that we are raising a healthy generation of gamers, mm-hmm. both how to handle the big emotions that sometimes come with video games when you're little, anywhere from that to just teaching them how to be kind. I think that is going to be a critical component, is the next generation of gamers. Yes, we're working at this layer and this level of generation today, but what about the next one and the one after that? Let's start to foster a generational change by raising our kids in a way that it fosters kindness and just being a good human, like you said.
Yeah, and translating not only kindness in person, but in video games too, because sometimes you have people who change, and no, you can also be nice in a video game. I promise. It's possible. Family.
So some of my most staunch advocates and champions are actually, allies. A lot of them cis men who see what I'm doing and they want to, platform me. They want to raise up my work. And, it's really strange, right, to have these allies who are really strong, but then also have people in that same identity group who are actively the problem, I guess is the best way of putting it. And I think this is because a lot of these people who are part of the majority don't have these hard conversations with one another. They expect us to just do that all the time. And I don't think that's good. That's terrible, in fact, because talking about this stuff all the time could be really hard. It takes a lot of energy to constantly have these conversations, right? So encouraging people who are your advocates, who are allies, to not just listen to us, but to have these conversations with others, because the reality is, let's say that, you are one of these really, really negatively thinking people in the majority. You're not going to listen to a woman. You're not going to listen to a minority. You're going to, stay staunch in your views. But if somebody who is another part of your group and your identity has that conversation with you, you might listen. And so, allies, we should constantly be pushing them where possible to have these conversations as well. Because unfortunately, these groups don't listen to us most of the time. So they need to listen to their own people, which, well, we can't do that because we're not them, but we can force them to sometimes kind of have these conversations on our behalf.
And keep on having it and keep on pushing with it. And I'm glad because you actually provided a good transition. Okay, this is hard. All right. It's hard on you. It's taxing. I remember Facebook. There was a story about the Facebook moderators who they moderate and they see things, and it's very taxing on their mental. Right. And so as we approach time, what do you do as community managers? What do you do in order to, not only detoxify yourself, I suppose, from seeing and being exposed to all that, so that you can still be in a good mood and still wake up in the morning and are like, hey, I'm still going to game regardless of all these different things, and still make sure I'm there for my community. What do you do for your own self-care?
I play video games. Isn't that what? I mean, I'm being honest, like even in my downtime, even if it's not with my community, I just love to play video games, or also sometimes I do need a digital, like a digital disconnect. And so I love, for myself, I like going out into nature amongst the trees. I love going camping and just not being tied to the computer for a little while and just taking in the earth for what it is.
Yes. Touching that grass, a good grass. Yes.
It's funny because I was thinking the same thing, Bert. I was like, I play video games to relax. But I also do try to get up from my desk because I'll play on my Switch. I'll actually go downstairs and like sit on the couch and play. But I also like to do like I like to cook. I like to do yoga. I like to do like face masks with my dog, like especially on the weekend, like a whole like, no electronics day, just like relax. And then just connect with friends. I think it's really important to, like when you've seen a lot of negativity online and just like people being awful to each other, to talk to other humans who are not awful and you kind of remember that like, oh yeah, other humans are nice and not everyone's just trying to bring people down all the time.
Yeah.
So you can imagine with me working with social media, it's quite hard to kind of switch off because social media is all around me. So I'm very, very blessed to have a partner who is very, very loving, very, very caring. And the way I detoxify is just getting away from my computer for a weekend, for a week, and just spending time with them. And I just shut off work, I shut off everything. And I just take time to be a human for once. I'm constantly, online. I think a lot of us, feel this, especially in the latest generations, that, everything is online and you have to be online all the time. And it just does so much good to switch everything off and just go be a human for a little while.
Yes. Surprise. Gamers detoxify with gaming, but they also detoxify with other things as well. And just taking time to center yourself. And, we're all taking a step in the direction of making sure that not only are ourselves we're detoxified, but also the gaming space as well. I want to thank you guys so much for your insight. This was great, a fantastic panel. And hopefully one day we'll get to a point to where we won't be having these conversations. But until then, I appreciate all you all's contributions to making sure that the gaming space is, like I said, just 1% less toxic every day.